Our police department has launched something called Operation Street Smart. There's been an alarming rise in the number of pedestrian, bicycle, car interactions and accidents and fatalities in some cases, especially around the schools. At the start of this school year, we had 2 accidents, one at a middle school with a child on a bike, and one in front of O'Galley High School. It was a pedestrian student hit by a car, and these children were both injured. And we're noticing a lot of this is just distracted driving, kind of the usual things you would think of, looking at your phone, not paying attention to where you're going. But we're finding that this is happening with the pedestrians, the cyclists, and the drivers all at once. So what we're doing is we're working in 3 ways: stepped up enforcement, more outreach and education, and also looking at engineering fixes, if there are any. So our officers are out at the different schools and intersections where there have been problems, and they're stopping people and saying, hey, do you see what you're doing? This is dangerous, this is why. They're doing a lot of outreach in the schools themselves, and you might know a little more about that, Matt, like what they're doing specifically there with the principals and the teachers, but they're trying to get more education going at the schools about this is how you safely cross a crosswalk on a bike. This is how you do it as a pedestrian. This is what you want to do in the car loop, Mom and Dad, when you come pick up the kids. We actually did have a couple of principals call our police department and say, hey, what can you do? We've got these parents not paying attention in the car loops, which is a very dangerous place to be distracted. But of course, people are busy, they're
Right.
trying to do a lot of things all at once, but we're trying to emphasize safety, 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 because we can't have children getting hurt. So they've launched that. They launched it kind of around the time of the start of the school year, which was also the time of schools closing with the hurricanes and all. So they're back in full swing with that, and we'll probably be doing a big public education outreach push around Halloween, because you've got all this distracted driving going on, distracted walking, distracted biking, and you're going to add costumes and darkness to that pretty soon with trick-or-treating. So we're just asking everybody to please take a moment, look around, be observant, just really, really think about what you're doing while you're driving and while you're walking and while you're biking.
That's also the Space Coast Transportation Planning Organization. Mm-hmm. That's been a major push for those guys, in recent months. I know Palm Bay, they've had numerous students who've been struck by vehicles, whether they're bicycling, whether they're pedestrians or not. So, and a lot of that is, like you mentioned, distracted driving and just awareness. That's the main, I think the main way that they can try to combat it is through public education. I know I actually did a story, I requested database information for Brevard County's crashes within recent year, maybe a 5-year span or so, involving school-age kids, and they were pretty much checkered all around the board, and there were no apparent patterns. A lot of cases, the driver is at fault. Other cases, it's the kid that's at fault. And a lot of what makes it even worse is practically none of those accidents actually happen at a guarded crosswalk. It's all throughout the residential neighborhoods, whether you're driving past commercial plazas, going through other intersections. It's a very difficult problem to tackle.
Yeah, and absolutely, it's been everybody. It hasn't just been drivers or just cyclists. I mean, we had one case where a child was hit, but he was riding his bike the wrong way down the street. Those kind of things. And thanks for mentioning the Transportation Planning Organization, because they're a big partner for us too. We're working with them, and they do a great job with education and outreach. And this is absolutely a partnership project with them, and it affects all of us. It's not just a City of Melbourne issue. It's everywhere.
Right. I remember there was a tragic case last year in Palm Bay. I believe it was an Odyssey Charter School student who was hit by a car, unfortunately, and killed. Since then, City of Palm Bay, I believe, has gone and gotten a grant from the University of South Florida to step up and increase patrols in schools areas. And we'll see what kind of results we get from that, but it's definitely a step in the right direction.